Camera control units are an essential component in many types of television production environments, especially when it comes to multicam productions. But what are they? How do they work? What purpose do they serve? In this video, we are going to be breaking them down to their basics by examining their core concepts and components, and by the end of this video, you might just be able to spell the term CCU. Hey everyone, this is Ryan Corcoran with Broadcast Buddy TV, the all-around go-to channel for all things broadcast television. And on this channel, it is our goal to equip you with the tips, tricks, and know-hows to help make you a better broadcaster. So if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing, hit that bell icon so you never miss an upload. With that being said, let's get started. So before we break down how a camera control unit, or CCU for short, works, we should probably talk a little bit about their role in the broadcast environment. To do this, we need to briefly examine the functions of a typical broadcast camera and then expand from there. A camera's functions can be typically attributed to either impacting the outputted image's framing or its composition. Functions that are directly tied to the framing would be things like the camera's physical mounting and positioning, as well as its zoom and focus controls. Whereas functions that are directly tied to a camera's composition could be things like its iris level, black level, shutter speed, and color balance. Generally speaking, in other environments like cinema or production houses, the responsibility for controlling all of these functions lies solely on the camera operator. In contrast, in live broadcast scenarios, these responsibilities are often divided amongst two different people: the camera operator, whose job it is to focus on the framing of the shot, and the video operator, whose job it is to focus on the composition of the shot. This is where a camera control unit comes in, and it allows for the independent remote control of these other functions. So why break these functions up at all? Well, there are several reasons, but it can really be summarized that the production is being shot and broadcasted live as opposed to being shot with the intention of being edited later in post-production. You see, in a live production, most of the time there is little to no room for error. I mean, as a camera operator, if you mess up your framing for the kickoff of the Super Bowl, you can't just ask them to go back and set it up all over again until you get it right. With this kind of pressure on the operator, it only makes sense to break apart these functions to allow them to focus solely on covering the specific actions or tasks during the event. In the same vein, there's also another compelling reason for allowing a separate operator to focus on the composition of the shot. This becomes very clear when you require more than one camera in your production. You see, when you are cutting between multiple cameras with different angles of the same setting, you'll more than often than not want the compositions to be as close to each other as possible. This helps the viewer at home watching the program to keep a sense of both continuity and linearity between the shots. Thus, it stands to reason that it would be more advantageous to have one person who can potentially control each camera remotely, because that one person would be able to preview and compare all of the camera's compositions at once to help facilitate the process of making them match each other, without having to continually ask the camera operator to make adjustments. So this brings us back to the one person who is responsible for these tasks. As mentioned earlier, this position is known as the video operator. The video ops role can be broken down into two key roles: to set up and to control the camera's compositions remotely via the CCU. The setup of the camera typically comes down to working with the operator in configuring the camera before the production even begins. You see, there are certain procedures that a video op can do to help set a baseline of all the cameras. These procedures can include various methods of calibration techniques, which usually can be made easier with a variety of different test charts. Things like setting a white balance or adjusting the back focuses of the cameras. After the initial setup of the cameras, the video op can usually spend the majority of the time during the actual production reactively tweaking or shading a camera's composition based on any changes that could occur in the environment's lighting or aesthetic requirements. This is why sometimes you'll hear a video op referred to as a camera shader. They often can manage this by directdirectly affecting the master black or pedestal, which is adjusting the camera for the darkest part of the scene, and the white level or iris, which is adjusting the f-stop of the lens so it'll permit only a desired amount of light to reach the camera's imaging device. And instead of relying on the imperfect human eye, they often use electronic testing equipment called scopes to accurately keep the camera's compositions consistent among the others. Two of these devices are known as an oscilloscope, aka a waveform monitor, to monitor the image's luminance value, and a vectorscope to monitor its chrominance values. Most of the time these tweaks are done with a special remote controller attached to the CCU, but we'll come back to that shortly. Now, I'm not going to go too in depth with the intricacies of these concepts in this video, but let me know in the comments below if you would like to see a future video covering these more advanced topics. So there is another major benefit when it comes to using CCUs in a broadcast environment, which also goes hand in hand with how they work. CCUs not only provide a gateway of accessibility into a camera's composition controls, but they also provide a great solution for transporting signals to and from the remote camera's location and the local CCU. Not only can the camera's video signal be carried, but also an array of other signals depending on the cable used to connect the two. Such additional signals could be video return feeds, teleprompter, intercom to the operator, microphone inputs on the camera controls, tally signals, and of course, power. In a broadcast environment, especially in a remote production, the benefit of being able to transport multiple signals over a single cable cannot be overstated. The time savings alone on setup and teardown, along with cable management, easily justify the utility of them. Now, when it comes to connecting a broadcast camera to a CCU, there are three types of cables generally used. The first type, and most antiquated compared to the other two, is a multicore cable. These cables are actually a series of smaller cables bound together to form a single banded cable called a snake, whereas each smaller cable carries its own unique signal in one direction to the other. These beefy cables aren't used so much in the modern day because of their bulkiness, limited transmission length, and their difficulty of maintenance. The next two cable types, in contrast, both offer advantages over all of these shortcomings. That's because they both take advantage of a technology called frequency division multiplexing, which allows for simultaneous transmission of several signals over a single wire. The first of these is Triax. Triax is often still a go-to in the industry because of its commonness, price point, and ruggedness. It is also considered a benefit that, through multiplexing, all of the signals are carried over a single triaxial core. The third type of cable is a hybrid of single-mode fiber and copper power cores. Fiber's major benefit over the other two is purely distance and bandwidth. However, it tends to have a higher price point than its predecessor, as well as it loses some of the ruggedness that triaxial cable brought to the table. This is because fiber optical cable transmission is based on light traveling through glass rather than an electrical signal traveling over copper. It is also because of this fact that fiber cable requires at least two strands between the camera and CCU, one to carry the multiplex signals to the camera and one to carry them from the camera. In situations where the camera's length is beyond that to carry power over the copper cores via the same cable, power can usually be supplied locally and independently at the remote camera's location, allowing for even greater distances. Now, there is a fourth type of connection medium I need to touch on. Transmission of signals can be carried over RF, or radio frequency. This allows you to forego cables altogether and move to a wireless solution. The obvious advantage here is, well, no wires, though the disadvantage can be loss of signal strength, and a wireless system has a pretty significant jump on starting price points. Whichever transmission type you go with, you will require a compatible adapter for your broadcast camera's body. Most manufacturers of camera CCUs offer different solutions to accommodate for the facility's needs. There are even products that are available to convert one transmission method into another, such as Triax to fiber optic. So CCUs are usually designed with the intention of being rack mountable. This is because it makes sense that they would be located in a broadcast facility's server room. This is because all of the camera's inputs and outputs are located directly on the unit. Stacking all of your CCUs together and near the rest of your equipment also makes sense from a cabling perspective. Shorter cable runs between equipment can save on money and potential signal loss in the system design overall. However, when it comes to controlling the cameras via the CCU, it sometimes doesn't make sense for the video op to be tucked away in the server room. Sometimes it becomes more advantageous to extend these controls to a different location, like the control room. This is where remote control units come in. See, I told you we'd get back to this. So remote control units, or RCUs for short, are basically a way to extend the control of cameras to a different location from where the actual CCUs are located. Some CCUs are designed to be able to support at least a degree of localized control by having the camera controls baked onto the front of the unit, where others actually require a RCU for any control. And depending on the manufacturer, there can be several different options when it comes to the form factor of these. In some cases, you will have a single RCU per camera control unit with a complete set of controls. Sometimes you can also get a smaller, more compact version with a more limited control set. Or in other cases, you can get a single controller solution that can handle switching control between multiple CCUs. There are even completely virtual options with software-based controllers that will communicate back to the CCU via transmission control protocol over IP. There really is no wrong answer to which solution is right, and it is based solely on the preference, requirements, and budget of a facility. Remote control panels are also sometimes referred to as operation control panels, or OCP for short. Now, there's one more thing that I want to touch base on, and it's a massive selling point when it comes to utilizing a CCU. This is the ability to accept an external reference signal. And I've touched base on reference before in previous videos, and I still do plan on making a future video more in depth about it. But all in all, in this scenario, it is important to mention because essentially what it allows you to do is time or sync your camera's video outputs to the rest of your broadcast facility. This in turn allows you to use production switchers to make clean, glitch-free transitions between cameras and other sources without the need to apply external time-based correctors, which can add additional frames of delay to your overall output. Putting all that together, you get what is referred to as the camera chain. The camera chain just describes the physical pathway of interconnected equipment involved in the standard studio camera setup. These components consist of the actual camera, or the camera head, the sync generator, power supply, and of course, the CCU. Well, that'll about do it for today's video. I hope you all found this information useful. Do you want to learn a little bit more on this topic? Check out my video where I design and build a shader in a box for a video fly pack. As always, thanks for watching, and with that being said, we'll see you next time right here on Broadcast Buddy TV.